In early 2021, Apple's market capitalization reached $2.08 trillion. To put that in perspective, this single corporation's valuation exceeds the entire annual gross domestic product of most developed nations. This scale represents a staggering concentration of global wealth, a collection of parts that did nothing. The 45-year journey from that garage to global dominance was defined by near-death experiences, power struggles, and a decade spent on the brink of collapse. The engineering behind the company's first computer came from Steve Wozniak, but the early venture was fragile. The third co-founder, Ronald Wayne, sold his 10% stake for $800 shortly after incorporating. Steve Jobs provided the initial capital by selling his only means of transportation, a Volkswagen microbus. Wozniak matched that effort by selling his high-end HP calculator to ensure they had enough cash. After securing an order for 50 units from the Byte Shop, they lacked funds for components. They negotiated a 30-day credit line with a supplier, essentially betting the company's existence on delivering the hardware before the bill came due. This first order was built on high-stakes personal risk. The founders were operating with a margin for error that barely existed, relying entirely on 30-day loans and liquidating their few personal belongings. By 1977, they launched the Apple II, a finished consumer product featuring its own monitor, keyboard, and case. With its open architecture and color graphics, it became a massive commercial hit, proving a significant market for computers that didn't require assembly. This success transformed the founders into millionaires almost overnight, providing the capital needed to transition from a garage operation into a major industry player. The Apple II validated a core belief that would guide the company for decades. Technology would only achieve mass adoption if it was presented as a user-friendly, integrated tool. That momentum faltered in the early 80s. While the Apple Lisa and the 1984 Macintosh introduced the world to the graphical user interface, they were commercially hindered by their own design. Their high prices, slow processing speeds, and a lack of compatible software made these ambitious machines difficult for the average consumer to justify. As sales dropped, internal tensions rose. Steve Wozniak left the company in 1983, marking the end of the original engineering partnership. This led to a pivotal ideological clash between Steve Jobs and CEO John Sculley. The board eventually backed Scully's traditional management vision, forcing Jobs out of the company he co-founded. In 1985, Jobs departed to found Next. For the next 12 years, Apple struggled to find a successor to the Apple II, drifting for the market without its primary visionary. By 1997, the company reached its lowest point, standing on the verge of bankruptcy. To save the firm, Apple bought Next for $430 million. A move that brought Steve Jobs back as CEO. Jobs immediately overhauled the company's strategy. He simplified the product line and shifted the focus back to industrial design that prioritized the user experience. The 1998 launch of the iMac proved his strategy worked, selling 800,000 units in its first 5 months and restoring the company's profitability. This was the start of an era of rapid-fire innovation. They opened the first Apple stores in 2001, launched the iPod, and created iTunes, which became the market leader for digital music sales. In 2007, they released the first iPhone. By combining a phone, an internet communicator, and a touchscreen interface, it became the most profitable product launch in the company's history. They followed this in 2010 with the iPad, the first tablet capable of performing the primary functions of a laptop for the average consumer. Within 10 years, this relentless sequence of hardware and software releases pulled Apple from the brink of collapse to global market dominance. This era of success was interrupted by the death of Steve Jobs in 2011, following a multi-year battle with pancreatic cancer. Because the brand's identity was so closely tied to Jobs' personal vision, many observers predicted the company would lose its innovative drive without his direct supervision. His death served as the ultimate existential stress test for the corporate culture he left behind for his successor, Tim Cook. Tim Cook had held executive roles at Apple since 2009. As CEO, he focused on operational stability while continuing to push into new product categories. Under Cook, the company launched the Siri virtual assistant and successfully expanded into wearables with the Apple Watch in 2015. By the end of 2020, Apple's net value reached $65 billion. The company didn't just survive the loss of its founder, it tripled in value. Having survived bankruptcy, internal exile, and the loss of its visionary, Apple has become more than as an electronics firm. Its survival through these cycles is why some now compare the brand's loyalty to a religion, proving that by marrying technology with accessible design, an enterprise can eventually transcend its founders.